Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via Livestream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpru.com.
Good evening. Welcome to Leadership Live at 8:05 Talking Small Business. How's everyone doing? I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and looking forward to another great evening of Leadership Live, Talking Small Business. As you know, each week we have a great guest, and we really talk about key topics that are valuable for entrepreneurs and business owners. At the end of the day, as a business owner, your business can only go as far as you can take it. And one of the key things to be able to take it further is your leadership and your leadership skills and your knowledge of business. And that's really what this show is all about. We do it for you to really talk about key things to help you build your knowledge, build your leadership skills so that you can be more successful in business. So this evening, we have a guest, great guest. Tonight, we're going to be talking about exit planning strategies, and we have Jack, and I'm going to mess up your last name, Giacalone, but you'll have to help me out with that. And so why don't you come on and do that now?
You got it right. It's Giacalone. It's close enough.
All right. How you doing tonight, Jack?
I'm doing well, Andrew. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me tonight.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Okay, excellent. So we got a chance to hang out recently at my recent Power Breakfast and conference, and really had a chance to connect, and you got to see a little bit more about kind of what we do for entrepreneurs and business owners there. So
sure.
And
I found it very intriguing that I got put into the fire quickly and didn't know I was. So it was good. It was good to be put to the test quickly.
Okay. Yep. Excellent. And you were on the financial management panel, and people really got a lot of value out of that panel. Even afterwards, a lot of people shared that they thought it was really good. So definitely it's good to be able to bring you back and be able to chat a little bit more with you about some of the ways that you help businesses and just some of the key things that people need to know about exit strategies. So
sure.
Looking forward to that. But before we get started, take a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about your journey, sort of where you started, kind of, things that you learned along the path and sort of where you are now.
Sure.
And then we'll go from there.
Sure. So, prior to this life, my former life, we were, my brother and I owned a small business. We actually owned, two or three of them at one point, all together. And, it was the restaurant and the wholesale business, bread business. So, I've skinned my knees along the way. And when I said that, enough is enough, you're the chef, I'm not, I just came to help you for a year, and it wound up being 12. So the great thing is that the education you get from running your own business and small business is amazing. So, along the way, I said I was in finance before I joined my brother, and then I said, I got to go back to doing what I love to do, and that's the finance end of it. But I didn't jump into the financial services industry, from a one-on-one or sitting across from an individual. They threw me right into the business planning training at then New England Financial. Then it was U.S. Financial. So had great mentors along the way, and it was always about the small business owner. So from that, I just honed my skills as much as I could on any aspect that I went through as a business owner, and then learned to really sharpen my tools up to say, how can I help, the smaller business owner? Because unfortunately, the real big guys get really good help. It's the small to medium sized businesses that are in need of it, and I knew that there was a need there. So, but from working at a big company to then venturing off and going on my own. So now myself and my partner Tom Hemmerly, we own the practice, and our main concentration is business planning and tax strategy. I mean, that is the biggest thing we do for business owners. So it's been a really good journey, and we really work on bringing value, and it's not just about the finance part. It's about how do you run a business, how do you pass on a business, and that's what we concentrate on.
Okay, excellent. No, definitely, that's very important because a lot of people get close to the end and just really aren't prepared at all. Mm-hmm. So we're going to spend some time talking about what you should be doing now, or even when you start or before you start, and then we'll sort of move through kind of as you get closer to the end. What should you be doing and what should you be considering? So definitely looking forward to chatting with you about that tonight. But before we get into that, we're just going to show you a little bit about the Small Business Pro University. We do the show and a lot of other initiatives for entrepreneurs and business owners through the university. So we'll take a minute to learn a little bit about the university, and then we'll be back with Jack talking small business. Do you own your business, or does it own you? Is your business growing, and are you making enough money? As a business owner, there are so many things you need to know to become more successful. Hello, my name is Andrew Frazier, the Business Growth Pro and CFO. I created the Small Business Pro University for you. Small Business Pro University has self-paced, dynamic, multimedia learning experiences created by more than 20 instructors who are business owners just like you. Small Business Pro University will empower you to become a masterpreneur by learning the secrets to creating a successful enterprise, to go from working in your business to working on your business. Take advantage of our strategic coaching program, or just simply choose the courses that you need at www.sbprou.com. We will empower you to thrive and not just survive, and make more money in any business environment. Okay, good evening. I'm back with Jack. That rhymes. I like that. So Jack, we're going to talk about exit planning strategies, but everybody comes from a different place. So it's always good to sort of define what things are and what things mean. So, when we're talking about exit planning strategies for businesses, what is it that we're really talking about?
Well, you got to, everybody's different, right? And when you're talking about exit planning, there could be a bunch of different ways why you want to exit a business. It could be that, it's time and you've been in it for a while, and, it's just time to sell and be done. A lot of times we run into exit planning where there's a family member, a son or a daughter that is you got to pass on. So, exit planning with that is totally different than what I just spoke about. there is one that's unfortunate, but if somebody gets sick or hurt, that's a tough exit, and you got to be able to exit and be able to move on in life with any illness or injury. So there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different paths to exiting a business. So it comes down to each individual and how they're able to exit out.
Excellent. Okay, so definitely, when you're leaving your business, which unless you are immortal, you generally are going to have to do at some point. So it's something that you should consider. And a lot of people aren't happy with the results of what happens after they've spent so many years building their business. So understanding how to be more prepared is key. And that's one of the things we want to talk a little bit about. So, Stephen Covey, one of his books is called Begin with the End in Mind. So, if you're talking to someone who's thinking about a business, starting a business or just getting into business, exiting is the end. What would you say they needed to know?
So, I first and foremost, not everybody can know everything, right? So it's sometimes it's a little bit of learning along the way, but I will tell you this. First thing I would do in any venture I take or what I did, and it took me a while, was I got a coach. I got a coach to coach me through, just the business planning and what my business is. And truthfully, it's where's the work-life balance, right? Owning your own business, you don't turn it off, but at some point you got to be able to clear your head to do that. So there's many different things you need to do to prepare as a new entrepreneur to say, leading goals, when do you want to exit? How long do you think you want to do this? It's most of the times it's not in your head when you first open. But I will tell you that I look at, exit planning as a leading goal. And at the end of my career, what am I doing? But the bottom line is you need the lagging goals to be able to get to it. How am I going to get to that point? So when we find a new business owner or somebody has taken over or built a new business, we're always, depending on age, we're always planning on how do we get to the end and exit out gracefully and to what you really want to exit out at. So things you need to look at, know your industry. God, that's so important. Most people go in and they'll think they know their industry and they stop researching. You got to know your industry and research as much as you can to just be better, cutting edge. Because if you have cutting edge, your exit later on and you're at the top of your game, your exit's going to be a lot better and a lot greater. So that's the most important thing.
Okay. So that sounds a little bit like Jack Welchish.
Nobody's ever called me that. They call me Jack, but not Jack Welch. That's for sure.
Right, but he would look at every division in GE, and unless they were number one and number two in their industry, he would get rid of them. So as your business, your small business, your goal needs to be a leader in your industry, or at least in your market niche. So no, that's a great point of understanding where you are and positioning your business in a place that it's valuable.
Yeah, and I could add to that is, you're as good as the people you hire as well, right? So, in Jack Welch's position, he was, he wanted to hire the best, and it's how you lead. You're always going to hit a glass ceiling at any given time, and it's hiring good people to break through that glass ceiling is how it really makes you successful. But and bringing in experts that you can't know everything as a business owner, you just can't. So I think that bringing in people that in certain areas are a little smarter than you is very smart. Definitely,
very, very much so. So you hinted at work-life balance a little bit earlier, which could be very elusive as an entrepreneur and business owner. But having a good team can allow you to have a much better work-life balance. So as people are building a team, what are some things they should be thinking about to be able to put together the right team?
Sure. So just to back up a half a second, work-life balance, I personally work off of a hard calendar. And there's some things that you just don't deviate from the hard calendar. I mean, it's or as best you can. That's really how you're going to get efficient. And then, so to give you an example, we needed a office manager. And office managers in our industry, you got to hire the right office manager. And what do I mean by that? Somebody that understands how to run an office, somebody that understands how to put in, when we submit business to different companies or carriers or investment companies, they need to know the flow of work and the flow of business. Mm-hmm. For me, that doesn't make sense for me to really be the expert on it, because I'm the one that has to do the planning part and see the people. So when you hire somebody, you got to know what their job is, what their workflow is, and what their expertise is. And I think that in today's environment, hiring the right people is so very hard because of the competition. Right now, it's very hard to find people to work. Unfortunately, that's just where we are today. So it's A, finding the right person. B, you got to pay them pretty good, because those are the ones that are going to stick. Your benefit package today is totally different than it was 10 years ago. So you always want to have that great package. And by having those people in place is really going to give you that work-life balance. So,
okay. So definitely bring the right people in place. Also, as a small business, you can't always pay top dollar, but there's things that are valuable to people even beyond just the money. So, sometimes you have to get creative, but there's always ways you can do things.
Yeah. I can tell you right now that I've watched people go to work just because, the husband and wife go to work, and, the husband's the entrepreneur building his business, going to work, but, the wife is going to work owning a business. The husband or wife will take a job that has amazing benefits but doesn't pay a lot. Mm-hmm. And it's because of the cost of the benefit. So a lot of times when you're an entrepreneur, and sometimes you can't do that, and you have people that are working together, I've seen it where they've taken on you can't always put the best package in front of them, especially when you just start. There's just so many things coming at you that, and you're forever in your checkbook writing a check, right, to something. So it's not always that easy. So, you're right. Sometimes the pay's not great, but the benefit package is great. Mm-hmm. So, that's a big stress for us, that we really go to work on bringing value so they can hire the right people.
Okay.
So it's building a good employee base is huge for an exit. Mm-hmm. Because then the person coming in, or whoever's coming in, whether it be an individual or venture or private equity or however it works, to have a strong staff, it makes it seamless for the person who's coming in. And to be honest, you're getting a little bit better of a deal when it's seamless. So,
okay. So now you've seen a whole bunch of type businesses go through the exit process. And, one of the statistics that a lot of people don't realize is most businesses never get sold or transferred to the next generation, but just end up closing down at the end. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the characteristics of the businesses that, can't really find an exit strategy beyond just closing down.
Sure. So, I've seen quite a bit of this, and usually, take for instance, plumbing business. A plumber is gonna, if I had to come back in my next life, I probably want to be a plumber because of what they make. So, but the kids don't want to be a plumber. So what do? They just shut down. But preparing as we'll call it a plumber, they have accounts, and it's how you prepare it to be able to exit. The biggest mistake people make and business owners make is, one, they depend on their business to be their retirement. Can't do that because you may not sell it. Two, they never prepare their business for sale. They think about selling and they want to sell it right away. Exit planning, it takes a little while to get it to where that company is strong. So, it's a good 3 years of getting books in place, staff in place, and along the way, you're going to lose some staff and put on some staff. So, but to build and have great workflow to build that company, to be able to sell it, it's the only way you're going to get it done. And I will tell you right now that most companies that we do work with always sell. 90% of the companies that we do work with will always sell because of the way we structure it and the way we put disciplines in. And at the end of the day, as a business owner, you got to have some disciplines in there. But there are some times that they just close. It's unfortunate, but it happens.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. That can be a challenge, and it's great that most of the ones you're working with do okay. And part, a big piece of it is prior planning. I mean, you really need to, at a minimum, start seriously looking at it 3 to 5 years in advance. And you mentioned that you shouldn't necessarily look at it as your retirement package, but also you shouldn't necessarily look at it as just selling at the end, but be more strategic about selling. So can you talk a little bit about kind of considerations and timing?
So with timing, and we've seen it quite a bit, sometimes the owners of these businesses, and timing can mean a lot of different things. We've done it to where, if the company is strong and has great financials, we're able to do certain things to where the company would buy out the owner. And I don't mean a stock purchase. I'm talking about just pure dividend buyout at that point. So, for instance, we have a company that we're working with now where we're doing a dividend buyback for the dad because the son is taking over. Well, because their financials are so strong, we're able to exit one out and move one in. Well, that took 3 years of planning. So it's 3 years of planning, and not only is it having the owner or the dad, the father, understand that it's not going to happen tomorrow, and it's also getting the son to say, you need to prepare in the next 3 years because it's going to happen. So preparing and teaching the next generation. So teaching the next, a lot of business owners I find all want to do it themselves, and it's hard to pass on and teach, especially if it's a father and a son or a father and a daughter, or kids that you're passing it on to. Usually it's a tough go, and getting them to change their mind to be able to say, listen, you got to teach the next generation to keep this thing going. Everything that you did to build this, you need to pass that on to them, and they need to know that. So education or educating the next generation is extremely important. When it comes to selling on the outside, it's just you got to know from the beginning, 3 to 5 years, you're starting from day one. It's going to take a plan to build and secure the business, to be able to make it marketable, then to be able to get what you need to get out of it, and how you exit out. Most people are not coming up with 100% cash to buy a business today. There's always some left on the hook, and you have to be able to prepare for any downside to that as well. And that's in that 3-year planning, the 5-year planning. So that's how we kind of look at that.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. You talked a little bit about being a strong company, and, definitely you have to have strong financials and you need to be profitable, because if you're not making any money, then how much is your business really worth? And you also have to be profitable on your tax returns, because if anybody's going to try and finance your company, if your company's not making money on the tax returns, as far as everybody's concerned, you're not making any money. So, definitely that's important. But, when you're selling a business, most people don't want to buy a business and necessarily have to work in it. And, a lot of times they want something that can run without the owner, or doesn't need you to run successfully. And, that's probably something you work with people on. How do you help people figure that out? Because most businesses never get to the point where they can run fairly successfully without the owner.
So it's very interesting that you say that, because the last transaction we did was it was a company that was sold to private equity. They're not, private equity's not working in it. So you're building this management company, and a lot of times when an owner exits to a private equity or a venture or whoever they're exiting to that aren't going to work in the business, it's how long are you going to have to stay on? So negotiating that part is always a challenge. But for what we do 3 to 5 years out is we're getting that management team ready to take this over, and they can do from A to Z. So now as an owner, listen, you sell a business at that point, you want out tomorrow. And when you're able to build that management team to be able to get, and we train it, we train these people, and we put the right people in place for folks. Once that's in place, your exit is quicker than the norm, because most companies that are buying another company, they'll either have one of two things. They're either going to depend on your management, or they're going to have management of their own that they're going to come in and step in. So to be honest, it depends on who's buying the company, but to prepare for that, you really got to have your processes in place and have your people in place to do that. So it's a challenge, and that's why you need that 3 to 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to say, okay, we're done in 5 years. What do we need to do and we take it from day 1 to the 5th year. And we follow the flow chart. We follow all the steps you need to do it. And there's milestones that we put in place and different things we put in place to be able to do that. So it's extremely important that, you put these milestones in place, because if you don't have them, you're not going to hit them.
Right. No, I mean, definitely. You talked about staying on, and that tends to be way more common than people think. That, as a business owner, you need to stay on. Several years back, I was brought in to kind of value a medical business, and the owner was looking to retire. His health was deteriorating some. He thought he was going to get over $1 million for his business, and I had to tell him, well, it might not even be worth $100,000.
That had to hurt.
He wasn't real happy about that.
No.
But he didn't think about his business in the right way, and didn't really think about exiting until the last minute. And a couple things at issue were, number one, his business needed him in it for it to work. So, he finally sold the business for a little more than $100,000, but he had to work for 3 more years, with the people who purchased it. So, talk a little bit about kind of your experiences with people staying on, you know, how that works, and what type of situations they set up to do that, or set up for them as far as doing that.
Sure. So your first comment was, people don't realize what their business is worth, right?
Yeah,
so when we sit down with somebody and they could be 10 years out from selling, well, we're talking about day one, even if they're 10 years out from selling. So when we look at this, how much do you want to be involved when you sell? Here's what we need to do to get to that point. You're going to have to stay on, but we're going to try and make it so it's so seamless that you don't have to stay on that long. But more importantly, A, the milestones, but B, we value a business on an annual basis, right? If you got 3 years in, we're always looking 3 years back, but we're always reevaluating what that business is worth. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to get what you think you're going to get. So every year, what that business is worth and what you need to do to grow it to get what you want to get in the end. Now, I can tell you right now, sometimes we look at owners that say, in 10 years, I want to be out and I want $10 million. Okay, well, right now you're worth $100,000. Your sweat equity and your whole passion may be worth $10 million, but on paper it's not. So, we build up to that point and we make it so at some point in time when you're ready to sell this, it's so seamless that you'll be able to sell it. You're prepared, and you're prepared to back out gracefully. Could be a year, 6 months, 2 years. I don't know what the number is, but when you're ready to back out, you're getting your top dollar that you wanted or close to it. And you're able to leave that business to the people that are running it today for you. So it's becoming hands-off. You need to learn how to become hands-off. Train it enough to learn to become hands-off, then you don't have to, your exit is easy. If you feel you have to do every single thing all the time, it's not going to be easy. You're going to stay on for quite a while. So we've watched it with very interesting company, and I'll give you an example. Court reporting. I didn't know that this could be a $30 million business, but this person that we worked with, we set him up to the point where he's not the stenographer. He's just sending people out to do it. But it got to the point where all his management was so good, he only had to stay on for 6 months and he was out. So that planning is taking the power of your expertise and teaching to be able to say, my people are in place. I don't need to be here once I sell. So.
Okay. No, that's a great point. If you can create a business that can run without you, number one, it makes it more saleable, but also it makes it not that difficult to keep. So, and many times it's worth more to you by keeping it than by selling it, especially if it's doing really well.
Sure.
That being said, just like in sports and many other things, a lot of times it's best to go out on top because
that's very true. And not many athletes like to do that. And right. Believe me, business owners and athletes, they're cut from the same cloth.
Right. And people could have potentially sold their business for so much more many years before they sold it, just because they were at the top, and they could have made all the money that they made in the next 5 years from the business, from the sale.
Sure.
So, how do you know that you're at the top, and what does that look like?
So it comes to a very interesting story. We have a very good friend of mine is in the sanitation business, and he has offers of $50 million, and he said, "Yeah, I can sell it for $50 million, but what am I going to do?" I go, "You got 50 million reasons to figure out what you want to do next. At the end of the day, and you got to realize that at some point you as a business owner have to say to yourself, you got to come up with a number. I can't keep saying, when's enough, right? I'm not living in your shoes, but I'll always get to the point where, because our relationships are so strong with our clients, we kind of tell them, at this point, when's enough? And guess what? If you sell one business, you can go on and buy another one if you feel you need to work or do whatever you want to do. I mean, it's really a preference, and it's, but I always tell them, you're going to want to sell this thing when the economy is not good, because you're not going to every year, a year goes by, and you start to slow down and you're getting worn out. Well, the time that it really hurts is when the economy's not great, and you're going to say, I got to get out, and you're not going to get what you want. So when I look at people selling their business, on top is when the economy's on top for them. They're at the top of their game. And when we kind of look at, if they've been in business a while, we'll look at some past history and say, listen, you had some growth 10 years ago that you grew 30%. Well, at this point, right now, from when the economy was really good, you were up 45%. So you went from 30, then you're up 45. It's time. It's just time. You could be in your 60s. Well, how long are you going to be doing this? People, some entrepreneurs think they're invincible, and it's not. It's not. You gotta really kind of have that heart to heart and say, you did really good. It's time to back out and pass it on to the kids or sell it out to whoever at that point.
Okay. So yeah, knowing when to call, when to say when, and make sure it's at the time when you can get the best exit. So
and Andrew, just to add to that, I always say, you didn't hire me to agree with you. You hired us to, and when I say hire, it's the relationship we have. We're supposed to push back and say, no, it's time, and give them the reason why we think it's time, and then make a decision. But at least hear us out to say it's enough.
Yeah, and definitely that's what advisors, coaches, consultants are there for, because they'll have a perspective that you may not have.
Nobody wants a coach that's just going to yes you to death. You want accountability, right? And at the end of the day, we know our friend Coach G. I'm always accountable to him. He makes me crazy, but that's what does it, right? It's you got to be accountable to somebody. And when you're the boss and you own the place, who are you accountable to?
Yeah,
you got to be accountable to somebody. Well, I'm the punching bag, but I'm going to come back and tell you why you should be doing it, and then you make your decision. So,
right. And a lot of times when you're the boss, everybody's afraid to tell you stuff.
Sure.
So you have to look externally for some perspective and to get feedback and ideas that can help you be more successful. So
just like your guy that sold his business for a little over 100,000, you came in, you had to tell him, you had to push back and say, no, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, guys like me and you get the brunt of it, but it's only to help them.
Right. But if he had come 3 to 5 years before he wanted to sell it, then it could have been a real different story.
Yeah, and that is the reason why we go in 3 to 5 years or whatever it is. I always ask the question. Somebody could be brand new, and I say, okay, when do you want to stop? And it's funny, the answer I get is never. Well, yeah, you're gonna, because you're only 30. Talk to me when you're 55, 2 kids, one's in college, and then talk to me and tell me when you want to stop. And if the answer is, I want to retire at 65, well, that's great. This is what we need to do to get there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
excellent. So yeah, we've been chatting about some valuable stuff. Exit planning is key, and it's not an area that a lot of people have much perspective on and sort of think about it later than they should. So definitely that's what we wanted to cover on the topic. We definitely have a few more things to go through, but before we do that, we're just going to take another break. As I mentioned early on, Jack was at our most recent Power Breakfast and Conference that we had. And, they're always great. We do them quarterly. So our next one's going to be January 26th and 27th. But, if you haven't been there or not sure what they are, here's a quick video that just kind of gives you an idea of, the type of experience it is. If you are looking to increase revenues, improve profitability, and or obtain financing for your business, you need to check out the Power Breakfast and Small Business Pro conferences.
My name is Andrew Frazier. One of the things we're here to do is supercharge your day.
Today's Power Breakfast has really been a phenomenal experience. I think it's exactly what business owners need, some true guidance of people who are genuine and really are leading them in the true direction of business growth and expansion.
The Power Breakfast is so important for the entrepreneurial community because it gives the various business people who come together an opportunity to interact and also do some business.
These events, hosted by Andrew Frazier, President and COO of Small Business Like a Pro, will supercharge your day.
Okay, welcome back. So that was just a little about the breakfast. I put the link in the chat to learn more about the upcoming one, as well as if you want to register early and save. But definitely, Jack, we're having a good conversation about exit planning. One of the things that, for small businesses and exit planning, size matters a lot in exit planning. And, what do you think, some of the optimal size and that you should be seeking to get to, or, the size range that you really should be in if you want to successfully exit in a good way?
So that is an unbelievable question, and I'll tell you why. Because I always tell people, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. So, everybody's different. If you're telling me that, and again, another example was we have this same court reporting company that wanted $39 million for his business. Well, nobody was buying it at $39 million. But because some of the exit planning we did and some of the tax planning we did, he sold it for $32 million, and he was able to make more at $32 million than he did at 39. So when we look at this stuff, we say to ourselves, and I'm going to take, depending on the business, let's take, for instance, a person who started from zero and he's got, he's doing, $3 million a year, and he's got a great EBITDA, and we can get a multiple of 8. That may be the right size for that person, or multiple of 6, or whatever it may be. That may be enough for that person. Everybody's different. So when we look at this and we're planning on an exit, we're always looking at what they want to be at, like we said, but more so, not so much, I always ask the question, well, how much do you want to walk away with? And when I get the answer, I said, well, what if we were able to sell it for less and you walk away with more? And then, of course, the open-ended, answer to that is, well, how the heck are you going to do that? Well, when you plan 3 to 5 years out, you're able to put things in place to where you may be exiting out the same time you're maybe pulling money out. Like I mentioned, dividend recap. You may be taking money out to where, you're exiting already and you don't even know you're exiting. So, size, it really isn't about more so than size. Size is in, it's in the eyes of the beholder or the owner. What do you, you're doing X amount of dollars a year and you want to make, X, and you're only doing a minimum, a small part of that. What do you need to do to get to that point to make that kind of money? So, and when do you want to make that kind of money, or when do you want to exit out, and when can we get it along the way? We may be able to get it along the way.
Okay. All right. Great point. You don't have to exit all at once. And it's really about planning and strategy, but it's also, different for every business owner and every 100%. Company. So you got to think about what you really want. that's hard for a lot of people because they never, they're always working. They don't even think about it. So,
or their numbers to the moon. I want 100 million. Well, you can't get 100 million only doing 5 million a year. I mean, it just doesn't work.
Right.
So, you just got to bring them down to reality but the interesting thing is, and I find this a lot, that a lot of owners that we speak to, they'll tell me, I want to exit. I want to retire at 55 and I want to exit out at 55. And this is what I want. I said, okay, well, you're 40. You got 15 years. What does that plan look like to make enough money and build the revenue up to be able to do that? And again, it comes down to that structured plan in place and milestones and great tax planning, because most people take tax planning as show a loss every year and we're good. Yeah, well, you're not going to grow because you're not bankable. We're able to show a good profit, great tax planning, work with your accountant to get you to that point. So it's extremely important that people have that misconception. Yeah, I depreciated it, or I showed a loss, no good, because you're going to want to grow. And you got no bankability here, and you're not going to be bankable, and I can't help you to grow.
Okay. No, definitely. I run into that all the time.
I'm sure you do.
Especially helping a lot of people get financing. I've helped small businesses get tens of millions in financing. But there's a few things that, are non-starters. And, you got to be making money for it to be worth it. You got to have your taxes in. You got to have at least some credit, some decency in your credit. So, all those things can be fixed, but, when you're looking for it, it's key. So
when you have profit, Andrew, when you have profit and good books and you're now bankable, banks are very hard to deal with today because they're so regulated. But if you don't have good books, good credit, and you're not bankable, what happens? You're going to go to somebody that they're going to lend you money. It's going to be a high interest rate. You're going to have to give up a big piece of your business. Now you just ruined the whole exit if you got to give up a piece of your business.
Yep.
At that point, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's important to, have your business working well. But you brought up a few terms that we want to go back on, so you can explain, because one thing I'm doing a 12-month series on maximizing the profit of your business, and the second part of the series is learning the language of business, which is accounting and finance, because most business owners, even multi-million-dollar business owners, don't really understand the language of business, and because that, don't even really fully understand how their company makes money. So you sort of used a couple words that people are probably unfamiliar with, EBITDA and multiples. What are those? What does that mean?
Yeah. So, and again, I did this at your conference, because EBITDA is, and help me with this, Andrew, because I always get it mixed up. Earnings before taxes, depreciation,
and the I is interest.
And interest. Gotcha.
EBITDA.
Yeah. So the acronym I get real well. It's the whole thing behind it that I don't, but I know what it is. So that's just a measure of how your profit is going, and at that point, you're going to get a multiple of that number. So if EBITDA is $1 million and your industry says it's worth 10 times EBITDA, you're going to get 10 million. And that's what that really is. So we always work to raise that EBITDA or that number. And truthfully, a lot of business owners, and I'm talking about big multiple $1 million business owners, have no clue what it is. So what we instill in that is, and working with your accountant and your CFO / controller, is how are we going to measure that on a quarterly basis? How are we going to measure that on an annual basis? I like to do it quarterly, so at least I know where we're at and where we're moving to. And then what do we need to do to lower some costs and kind of grow that number in sales to where we need to be to get to that multiple. So most business owners, I'm going to say 90 to 95% of the business owners don't even know what their multiples are in their own industry. And we teach that. You need to be able to teach that and say, this is what the average of your industry is getting. And it's real important that they know that. And a lot of these terms, again, I take nothing away from a CPA or an accountant. They do what they do. But some of them just don't know this and don't really look at it because they're just kind of keep them on board with taxes and payroll tax and everything else that they have to do with that. So, we find it very important to work with the accountant and say, listen, this is I need your information to measure where this EBITDA is at this point, and then know what the multiples are. So that's how we look to build an exit plan, is based on that number, because the owner's going to want a multiple of that number.
Yeah, definitely. It's important to know that. I think, you mentioned a great point. I do outsource CFO sometimes, but I'm a finance CFO. So I focus on current forward. And
Sure.
The accountants and accounting controllers and whatever, they focus on today backwards.
Yeah.
And I need that information that they do, but that's not my expertise. I understand it somewhat. And just like, what I do, they understand somewhat, but not necessarily. So, there's a lot of different pieces of, financial knowledge that, business owners may need at different points in their journey. So
important, to build the right professional team around a business owner is so important. I'm just one of the pieces. As the CFO, I depend on the information you give me, what the accountant gives me to be able to help move this along. Attorneys, it's amazing how you have some real estate attorneys that are doing, M&A work for people, merger and acquisition or sale of a business. No, you're in the real estate area. I need somebody who's in the securities law, business law, that, and then it comes to estate planning for when you do sell your business, and it comes to this big number and what's your estate worth at that point and what's your liability to that. Well, no, we need a tax and estate attorney for that. So, having those professionals around us, and we love to build a team of professionals. It's us moving in along with the business owner and saying, okay, we're going to interview this person as your attorney for transactions. This attorney is going to do your tax and estate. Your accountant is this person. You're comfortable with them. You like them. Can they work with the team? So having that cohesive team. CFO, you're not big enough to be this have a full-time CFO, but then we come to Andrew and say, how do we, you come in part-time and you're going to steer us in the right direction. So these are the things that building a team is so important.
Yes, definitely. So, we covered a lot of stuff, and like I said, an hour goes faster than you would think.
You're right. You weren't kidding.
So, before we wrap up, I always like to ask the guests to really take a minute to think about, what are the top 3 things people should take away from what we said tonight? Because, we covered a lot, but, people can really only handle thinking about 3 things at a time. So, we want to leave them with something that they can start thinking about and even working on tomorrow.
Sure. So if you're asking me, it's work on what you think, time-wise you'd want to exit, and it could be 30 years from now or 20 years from now. I don't know what the number is. A number on what you want to exit to that's going to make you happy. More importantly, you said something before, learn to work on your business, not in your business. So, putting the right people in place, even if it's, if there's 10 people you need and one is the right person at the time, that's just one more that you have in your arsenal to be able to grow. And most importantly, know your glass ceiling and how you're going to break through it. There's different milestones, and the hardest part is breaking through those milestones. So those are the things I would tell you. And then, plan your exit. I don't care if it's 30 years from now. Plan your exit. Understand it, plan it. Because if you do it last minute, it's just not going to be, it's going to be painful. I can tell you that from firsthand from working with people on it.
Okay, no, that's great. Not just painful, expensive.
Extremely. And a great story, because I know we got to cut off soon, but we had somebody that thought he was worth, 25, 30 million. Somebody offered him 130 million. You have a estate tax issue and you're 68 years old. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's now coming in and rolling up your sleeves and figuring the best way out of it. So you're right. Expensive isn't the word.
Yeah. So definitely, this is cool. So yeah, this has been great, Jack. I, definitely appreciate you coming, hanging out. Great to be able to learn, kind of what you do and how you help people and how important it is to really plan when and how much you think that you're going to look for, being able to work on your business rather than in it, so you can create something that's sustainable and can run without you. And then really looking at milestones and how are you going to achieve them and break through them. So, and having milestones.
Sure. Having them. I got to tell you, Andrew, this is the second session I've had with you. The first one was live, and you're doing great things. I mean, these are things that the business community, small to medium-sized business community, is so underserved, and that's pretty much why I concentrate on that side. So keep up the good work. It's great.
Okay. No, thanks. And you too, definitely there's such a need, and being able to really focus and bring value and knowledge to them is key. So hang out for a sec. I'm just going to close things out, and, we'll wrap up.
Cool.
Okay. Excellent. So, once again, excited to have had a great chat with Jack about exit planning strategies, something very important for you to think about and start on early as a business owner. So definitely, hopefully you can take away some of the key things that we discussed. Of course, you can watch the recording right where you're watching it tonight. So if you want to just rehash or, look at, more detail about some of the things we talked about. Also, if there's people that that should know what we talked about, you may want to forward that and share it with them as well. So always appreciate you tuning in every week, and definitely we're excited to really come up on the end of another year. So we've already been doing this for almost 2.5 years. We started out just on Facebook, and then we were able to expand onto LinkedIn and YouTube. And then about a year ago, we're also broadcasting live in the metaverse on STEM City USA. So, definitely being able to share the message and the information with more and more people, which is great. So definitely looking forward to that. One thing I'm really excited about is, with the Small Business Pro University, we're about to launch a new platform that's going to be available to really, building a community around it. So it's going to be the Small Business Pro University Community Network. And, we're, really going to help provide you with knowledge, network resources. And so hopefully, you join us in the university. Basic membership is free. And then as you look at, additional services or capabilities, there is a cost, but there's also a lot of value there. So that's going to be coming up. Hopefully before the end of the year, you have a chance to join and participate and see what it's all about. So next week, I'm excited. Our guest is going to be Marcella Giancarelli, and we're going to talk about networking, connecting, and developing your community. As a business owner, nobody does it and is successful alone. So, how are you going to build the relationships? How are you going to build the community around you, and the ecosystem that you need to be successful? So I look forward to talking to Marcella about that. She's definitely a mover and shaker. She's, involved in building organizations, building community, and creating opportunities and resources for all around her. So definitely looking forward to having her as the next guest next week. So always a pleasure. Hope you tune in next week. At the end of the day, as you always know, the more that you know, the faster your business will grow and the more successful you're going to be. So take care and look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 805, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.